Order at 12:30. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Moving on to roll call. I'm here. Vice President Pellegrino is excused. Treasurer Wu.
Here.
Secretary Wadsworth. Here. Our Chief Justice is excused. Our College Council representative absent. Director Nolan is absent. Director Reynolds is absent. Senator DeHaab. Senator Rogers. Senator Self.
Here.
Senator Fees. Senator Argenio.
Here.
Senator Rosamilia.
Here.
Senator McKay. Our advisor. CFP is absent. Wildcat Media. The Factory Times is absent. Web. Wildcat Esports. SAC is excused, and Res Life is excused. Moving on to the approval of minutes of 10/13/22. Do we have any discussion on these minutes? Our treasurer.
I'd like to entertain a motion to skip all reports and limit discussion to 5 minutes per bill and resolution.
Do we? Okay, so moved by Senator Fees. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent on this motion? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. Moving back onto the discussion of the approval of minutes of 10/13/22. Wildcat Esports.
Bill number 2022-2023-09 to the agenda. I yield.
Is there any discussion on adding Bill 2022? Where would you like that, in new business?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion on moving Bill 2022-2023 -09 to new business? Seconded by Ava Fees. Or do I have a second? Is there any second? Seconded by Senator Fees. Is there any discussion? Senator Fees.
Yes, this is fall under 20 information. Is this not out when you come to the report yet?
So, Secretary Wadsworth, yeah.
Typically, those are not sent out until after it's approved.
Senator Rosamilia.
Are you talking about the student involvement bill? I yield.
Is there any discussion on that question? Our Secretary?
So, no, this would not be the student involvement bill. This would be a bill for the new senators. What it is if we have a bill or resolution that needs to be on the agenda this week, but it didn't make the cutoff for the agenda, they'll add it onto the agenda after. And if the motion is approved, then it will be sent out to everybody, so you can look at it then. I yield.
Is there any additional discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent on this motion? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. Bill 2223-09 will be added to new business. Is there any further discussion for the approval of minutes of 10/13? Our treasurer.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn at 1:15 p.m.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Self. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Fees. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent on this motion? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. We will be adjourning at 1:15. Back to the discussion of the minutes of 10/13/22. Do I have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody approve? Does anybody oppose unanimous consent on this vote? Seeing none, the minutes pass 7-0-0. We have skipped all executive reports, committee reports, and org reports. Moving on to new business. There is no new business. Moving on to new business. There is no old business. Moving on to new business. Can I have who's reading the bill? Resolution 2223-05. What senator is reading that? Senator Self.
Motion to accept resolution number 2223-05.
Do I have a second? Senator Fees.
We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of this resolution is to purchase 10 Model E pad/tampon dispensers, 2 cartridge pads, and 2 cartridge tampons, whereas purchasing these machines and products will provide free and sustainable hygiene products in 2 bathrooms in every non-residential building. Therefore, be it enacted, the student government supports and funds the purchasing of this equipment to increase accessibility to basic needs. Therefore, be it resolved, the student government at Utica will fund the entire amount of $2,710 out of line null to support this project. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this resolution? Treasurer.
Motion to change line null to line 999.
Do I have so moved by Senator Fees. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent on this motion? Senator Self, do you oppose? Okay. So we'll move on to voting. All in favor? All who oppose? And all who abstain. This motion passes 7-0-0. Line null will be changed to line 999. Moving on to back to discussion of resolution 2223-05. Senator Fees.
This is a great initiative, providing these for women on campus and schools. I do, however, have one concern. Obviously, passing tampons, as most women know, is a reoccurring cost. Is that reoccurring cost going to fall on SGU? Student Wellness Center? What is that reoccurring cost going to fall on? I yield to our president.
So this reoccurring cost will be coming out of, there is a small line in the, oh my goodness, I can't remember what it's called, I'm sorry, Andrea Legata's line, I'm sorry. When I would imagine that's where yes, the foundation account, to support that. Is there any other discussion on this resolution? Senator Rosamilia.
Would that also fall under the Safety and Facilities and Committee? I yield to the floor.
I'll go ahead and answer that. I'm not entirely sure what you're referencing there. So this would be bought by the student government as the whole to support a student project. And then we'd hand that over to the facilities management team to install those. Is there any other discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. All in favor? All who oppose? And all who abstain. This resolution passes 7-0-0. Moving on to resolution 2223-06, Senator D'Argenio.
Resolution 2223-06.
Do I have a second? Senator McKay. You may proceed.
Okay. Yeah. We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of transfer $4,500 from line to assist with transportation, meals, and materials for Fall 2022 Innovation Challenge hosted at SUNY Polytechnic Institute.
You gotta read the entire thing.
The budget amendment will provide funding support for the Innovation Challenge New York Housing, Shelter, and Technology. This event will be held at Kinsella Hall on November 11th and 12th in the Student Center MPR room. We estimate that approximately 60 students will attend the event. Meals would be around $3,000. Busing and transportation, $2,800. Supplies and materials, $527. Print materials and publications, $2,300. Awards, $400. And expert travel and expenses, $500. Okay, keep going. The method for this bill would be considered by law of majority vote of the Senate. The scope will be this bill will impact the several academic majors within SUNY Poly student body by providing an academic event to enhance the educational experience outside the classroom. The theme of this year's innovation challenge is harnessing the innovative potential of emergent technology and novel housing firms. The duration of this bill will become law immediately upon passage and ratification.
All right. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Pro tem fees.
So the formatting is not your issue. Would that fall under house rules to put it in that?
Yes, because it's not changing the actual purpose of the
Thank you.
resolution. Treasurer Wu.
Entertain a motion to change line no to line 991.
So moved by Senator Self. Do I have a second? Senator Rogers. Is there any discussion? Senator Fees.
So I noticed in here that your total bill is $9,527, and the amount you're asking for is $4,500. Where did that amount come from, and who else is funding this? I really.
So, do we have any representative here from ICNY? So I don't think we do. I think this is mainly for the meals and transportation portion of it. And please just remember that we're currently in the discussion of changing the line null to line 999. 991, I apologize. Is there any discussion on changing the line null to line 991? You're good. Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. All who oppose, please raise your hand. Or all who, sorry, all who accept, please raise your hand. All right. All who oppose, please raise your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. This motion passes 6-1-0. Back to discussion of the original motion, so the resolution itself. Senator Self.
I believe this will be good because it brings in students to show their creativity out and about instead of just sitting in a classroom learning everything every day and getting a set pattern. They can show some creativity out and about instead of just sitting there where they are now. I yield.
Is there any other discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. All who accept this resolution, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. This resolution passes 7-0-0. We are now moving on to the discussion of Bill 2223-09. Senator Fees, we're going to assign that to you.
Motion to accept bill number 2223-09.
Do I have a second? Senator Rosamilia.
All right. We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to implement policies and procedures of Wildcat Youth Sports to better serve the students of SUNY Poly.
Is there any discussion? Pro tem Fees.
Given that these are, changes in the policy and procedures that I think need to be looked over by the senators and they haven't had time, I'd like to make a motion to table this for one.
Do I have a second? Senator Rosamilia, is there any discussion? Wildcat Esports.
Being that, excuse me, being that we're actually a bit pressed we're pressed of time to pass this change for the policies and procedures, as this needs to be done before FragFest, as one of the changes involves FragFest. I disagree with the motion, also partly because of the fact that the bill needs to be on the table for 2 SGU sessions before it needs to be voted on. So the senators would have a week anyway to review the bill before it goes on to old business next week, Thursday. I yield.
Is there any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. All who agree, please raise your hand. And all who voting on the motion to table. All who agree, please raise your hand. We'll restart that vote. All right. Senator Stoff, is your hand up or? Okay. All who oppose, please raise your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. So this motion passes 3-2-2. So this bill will be tabled until next week. Moving on to open forum. So we're going to start with student concerns first and then move on to the pro temp election. So is there any speakers that would like to speak during open forum? And at this time, I'm going to relinquish the chair to Secretary Wadsworth.
Have anybody for open forum? Our audience member.
The IMGD major went to GDC to network and stuff like that, and we are proposing to go there again this upcoming March, right? Yeah, this March. GDC is the Game Developers Conference. There are not many conferences of the sort. It's pretty much exclusively for professionals in the industry to come together and network and make new connections and stuff like that. So the reason why we want to do this trip is because it's a pivotal moment for seniors in the major to transition from the college experience to the professional field, and how well that happens will but this has been achieved in the past. We have experience with Dr. Usel has been a contact of us. Professor Usel has been a contact for ours, and he's set up the trip before for a group of 10 people. That got canceled due to COVID. But there's still those connections that we are still planning on using to leverage. So we have the support of both USEL as well as the Dean of Arts and Sciences, Andrew Russell. And we are looking to gain the support of the SGU as well in this endeavor. So the previous trip ended up costing around $60,000 for taking 10 students to GDC. The landscape has changed a bit, and we are currently working on throwing together documentation to cover how that cost will how the budget will currently play out, and the logistics involved in that. And yeah, so we would like to request support by the SGU for help with making this trip possible.
So I'm going to add on to what Jared said, but I'm going to be pretty concise. So we're currently, we've talked with a bunch of, including Empire Development. So I just want to reiterate, we're not looking for that massive number. I know I came here last week. A lot of members here had to step out. Totally fine. Long meeting. But I came here last week and I set a number, that 60,000 number. And I try to I want to reemphasize that we're not looking for SGU to just like cover it. That's ridiculous. So, but we are looking for support from you guys because obviously as student government, we like you. And you know, you represent us as students. So we'd really like, you know, on top of just like maybe funding, we're also looking to connect with you guys and actually use you guys as a resource. So if you know, if you can help us connect with either sources of funding or possibly we're looking at starting a club, which is, or working with the game design club in kind of being formal about this and respectable for everybody involved, and also building networking and stuff. So we want to build this not just for like us. We're not doing this as a personal matter. We want to do it for the IMGD major because a lot of the career fairs and stuff like that, they're great career fairs, absolutely amazing. But for IMGD students, we're not represented in the jobs and like people who come, hiring agents and stuff like that. So this is a great opportunity, and we're really excited to do it. We're very motivated. Everybody here showed up because we wanted to show that it's not just 3 people saying, hey, we want to do this. It's like, hey, there's people doing it. So, yeah.
Senator Fees.
Oh, I yield, sorry.
I think that's, you're fine, don't worry about it. We pick it up, you're all done. I think that's a great initiative, but I think like you said, that there definitely needs to be a little more, I think not more analysis, but there needs to be a little more development. I think if you talk to the budget committee, I'm not sure when that's meeting, Sean will send something out soon about that. If you're putting factors in there in technology, I know Logan's working on that right now, you're ahead, and if you meet with, you know, the clubs and Jimfish, I'm sure you can find a way. I'm sure you can actually garner support, whether you get money from fundraising or directly receive money after this initiative. I think there's definitely other representatives in SGU, although you have my I yield.
President Fish.
So I just have a few questions. So I appreciate you guys coming here. I know it takes a lot to try to walk up. I know we're intimidating at first, but I appreciate it. So how is this funded before? Did SGU fund it? Did you do grants? I'm curious.
Did you cover it? Sure.
So before when the IMGD major was first being established, it got a major grant from the state, and there was some excess funds left over that was put towards going to GDC. That was done in collaboration with the Empire Development Group, or was that it?
Empire Development.
Yeah, Empire Development and the IGDA, and together they were able to drum up enough funding to send 10 students to GDC, and that was headed by Professor Ussel back in 2018. Well, I think it started in 2018. It was to go it started in 2019. It was for 2020, and because of COVID, GDC was canceled, and the state recouped all the funds. So, yeah. Yes, and I yield.
Mentioned that I think you did touch on it a little bit. Have you went back to these companies to ask for additional funding? I know you touched on it a little bit.
We have not reached out directly. We have talked with Professor Ussel about this. We were talking about it with him earlier today. He was mentioning how he reached out to his contact and that his contact no longer works for them. So we are currently looking for a new contact to chat with the Empire Development.
Thank you. And so, again, you touched on this a little bit more, but how does this benefit like the rest of the IMDG students and then the rest of the SUNY Poly as well?
So the way that this benefits the IMGD students specifically is that it increases job placement. The more people that we can get into the industry, the better it is for the current students in the program. We recently had a student or an alumni come in to give a talk on what it's like to work in the industry because they had a job there. That was the first time we had that experience in the major, and it was very enlightening. It really, and we got her LinkedIn information, so she is now a contact for many of the students, which vastly improves a lot of students' chances of getting involved. Also, it gives students an opportunity to network professionally, which is something that is non-existent in the current framework for the major. Having conversations with professionals not only brings up the people that go there, it improves the way that it improves the tool. It's a very, the IMGD major is very team-based. There's a lot of group projects, and having people with professional experience that can like pass that along is, I believe, is very important. And other than just that, we've been passing along the idea of sending an admissions representative with the group of students to look for, because we have, as an IMGD student, we have no representation in job fairs. We would like to pass along an admissions representative with the students who can basically go there and look for contacts to bring people in for the job fairs for the major and going forward. We would also like to develop this in a sort of way that it sets up a pipeline so that future students can go through this, see what we've done, and go over our documentation, see what it takes to make this work, and basically give them a little head start that we don't really have with like setting up meets for conventions and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that is.
So how much are you asking for? I know it's kind of up in the air, but like just an estimated amount.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's a great question, obviously. So for funds, obviously we cited 60,000 as the overall trip. We would love maybe a fourth of that, maybe even a third, if that's possible. I think without concrete evidence, and I'd love to come in front of you guys again with more information with Empire and then IMGD or IGDA. Sorry, it's a terrible acronym. And really have concrete stuff on you, either a yes or a no, or have a contact that we're currently in connection with, talking with. So right now, I would aim probably like a fourth or a third of the total cost of the trip. Whether or not that would be travel costs, ticket costs to the event, would completely depend on what, standpoint and what you got in, how we work it. However, as it stands right now, the heaviest cost of the event is actually not the transportation or the housing for the students over the time. It's actually the event itself, the tickets. And we actually have reduced the price a lot and found kind of, not to say cut corners, but I've looked into much more affordable ways than back in 2019 that they looked at. Things that students don't really need to go to. Educational fairs for teachers, for instance, networking board's not really great for a student. So yeah, so cutting off that kind of stuff, make sure we're only spending money we really need to spend for the students. So that go. So I don't know if that, I didn't give you an amount, I'm sorry. So I guess a fourth, I don't know, I'm not great at math, so 10 to 15 probably I think was right. 15 then? Yeah, 15 to 20, yeah. Sorry, I'm GD major.
And then, my last question, so are you willing to do fundraisers or like community service for the event? So I'm asking this because we would imagine that we would hold you to the same standard as we hold clubs. So
Absolutely.
Service events, you can only ask for a certain amount of money.
Yep.
So are you willing to make a club, and you're already kind of pointing towards that? Would you also kind of help us with like fundraiser and stuff like that to kind of help your costs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we want to like illustrate that this is something we're incredibly motivated to do. So, absolutely. And then.
Yeah, this isn't just that we want to go to GDC. We also want to go through the process of how do we set up going to GDC. So like helping out with fundraisers, anything like that. We definitely want to work with you and go through, get that experience. Yeah.
So I did talk, of course I missed your first presentation, and I apologize for that, same with Trevor Wu, but we did watch the recording, and we already had some meetings about this. And I've asked the e-board if it's okay if I announce this, and they all mentioned yes, besides Dan, he's not here, obviously. So with Senate approval, the executive board itself has agreed to match dollar for dollar up to $5,000 of funds that you fundraise. The reason why we picked that $5,000 amount is because that's how much we can limit to give to clubs. So we're only allowed to give $5,000 to each club. So we only think that's fair. I understand that's a little bit less than you're expecting, but hopefully, and we'll help you with the fundraiser as well, but hopefully we can fundraise that and match it dollar to dollar. Of course, that's not promised. It has to go through the Senate. You've been here, so you know that process pretty well. But and we can also discuss it further if you'd like. Thank you for coming. Does anybody else have anything else to say or ask?
Senator Self.
I know it's not an official time, but this will be the first meeting for the academic affairs. If you want to come, stop in, throw some ideas around. It's going to be 6 to 7 on Monday if you're available. 6 to 7 Monday in the SGU lounge, which is upstairs. I'm going to be sending out an email. If the meeting ends a bit early, feel free to stop by me real quick, and I'll throw your emails in with all the other grouped emails I got. Thank you guys very much. I yield.
President Fish.
So this is just an overarching thing. So this doesn't really have anything to do with you, but I can thank your group, and I can also thank Webb and more specifically Aiden for this. So there was an idea, and we might pass it through the Senate. I still have to talk to Treasurer Wu about it. I don't think I told him yet. But we're thinking about making a line in our budget every year for an X amount for specifically grants like this. So every year, if there was a student group that needed travel or something, they could apply for that grant. We would make sure that they know, obviously they might not get the entire amount they're asking for, but they'll be able to have that fund. So it's a little bit of an easier process. That's very much in the works. That probably won't be implemented this year. It might most likely will be implemented next year or even the year after that.
Treasurer Wu.
Another suggestion is that you guys can go talk with the career services, because I know they're more in the job fields, and you could get connections there, see if they want to also give a part of their budget to you guys too.
Audience member.
Okay. To go off what Jay was saying, right? I had an idea. Instead of yelling at you this guys, instead of yelling at you guys this time, I have a suggestion. So with that fund, or with funds that we have the career fair going on today. Whoa, that's so cool. How many people here are civil engineering or mechanical engineering? I'm civil. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So the career fair, I know I haven't been to this one yet because I came here because I like hanging out with you guys. Usually it's just civil and mechanical engineering. Now I'm not going to complain because that's my major, so I'm perfectly fine with that. But I feel bad for the other students who don't get access to career fairs that have like a varied job selection. Usually we don't have many CS, or we don't have we don't have any game design stuff at these career fairs, and I think it's really frustrating for a lot of students. I can't imagine how frustrating it would be to show up to a career fair and not know if you're even going to get something, right? So I think that SGU could look into maybe working with other colleges that maybe have a more varied career fair, right? So something like, SUNY Binghamton or something. We get a bus, we get in contact with them, we say, hey, is it all right if we send some of our students? And we get, a bus and we send people down and we bring them back. It helps our outreach as a school, and it also helps guarantee that more of our students get jobs, because I know that's a really big thing with a lot of the students here. They're scared that they're not going to get a job, and I think that offering more career fairs that have more options in terms of jobs and outreach would be a really good step towards helping students feel better about getting jobs.
Our advisor. President Fish.
Yeah, so echoing off that, I do see it like a bigger improvement with the range companies there. So like just real quick that aren't engineers. I see ICANN, they actually just came on campus. ARC, there's a bunch of more social careers, so like sociology, psychology, stuff like that. So thankfully we have started to expand that. Just looking real quick though, there are a wide range, so it's nice to see that happening. The psychiatric center, the health center, retail. So thankfully that there are more companies starting to slowly come in.
Do we have anything else for open forum? I will now relinquish the chair back to President Fish.
We'll move on to pro temp elections. So last week, senators nominated Senator Fees and Senator McKay to become the pro temp. Would anybody like to make any additional nominations at this time? All right, seeing none. Senator McKay and Senator Fees, can you please step up to the mic? And we'll let you introduce. I'm also going to entertain a motion to have all candidates introduce themselves for 1 minute. Do I have a so moved? So moved by, do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Argenio. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. And I'm also going to entertain a motion to limit the questioning period to 3 questions. 3 questions. Those questions have to be directed to both senators. If they're not, I will not accept them. And they also, each senator gets a minute to discuss that question. Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Fees. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Is there any discussion on this motion? So again, 3 questions, 1 minute each to answer. The questions have to be directed to both senators. Perfect. Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. One more motion I'd like to entertain. So I'd like to entertain the motion to go, when we go into executive session, to vote by written signed ballot. So you'll write it down on a piece of paper and hand it in to myself, just so it's then more private. Nobody knows who's voting for who. So moved by Senator Self. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. I'd like to also recommend making a motion to change the end time of this meeting, but I will not make that motion. Senator Fees.
Make a motion to end the meeting at 1:30.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Do I have any discussion on this motion? Wildcat Esports. Senator Self.
If you have other things to do, you are allowed to leave, as a bunch of senators and others had done last week when the meeting came to an end. If you have something else you have to attend to, you won't get punished if I believe that's correct. I yield.
Is there any other discussion? Did I get a second for this? I did. Moving on to voting. All who agree, please raise your hand. Yes, all who agree. Accept. All who oppose, please raise your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. So do you two agree, oppose, or abstain from that motion? You abstained? All right, so this motion passes 4-1-1. Yep. Yeah, 5-1-1. I apologize. So we will be adjourning at 1:30. So Would the two senator-elects, pro temp-elects, like to introduce themselves for 1 minute?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who are unaware, I'm Ava Fees. I'm the sophomore senator this year. I was the pro temp last semester. I was elected halfway through the year. I'm also the chair of student wellness and the co-chair of academic affairs and technology. This position is a position that I really enjoyed last year. It's a position that I really held dear. For me, it felt like I was really serving my students here at SUNY Poly because that's where my passion lies, especially within student wellness. You know what I mean? This position gave me the opportunity to work with directly with almost every committee, and I showed up to, class gift, and I was helping them out with that, and I had so much fun doing this. This is where my passion lies, is helping our students and our senators make the best decisions for our students. For previous context on my previous endeavors in student government, I was the chair of student wellness last semester, and I did the mental health screening. So we had about 30 students check into that, and I think 15 of them were screened for any mental health disorders like bipolar, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So I think that was a huge success. We got 15.
All right, your time has
Thank you.
adjourned. So, Senator Merkay, you have 1 minute.
All right, so my name is Amber Merkay. I'm a first-year student here at SUNY Poly and a first-year senator. I am also part of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. I am the secretary for them. I'm also part of Women in Engineering and ASCE, which is the American Society of Civil Engineers. However, since this is my first year, I don't have a lot of experience on the college campus. However, I was a part of Upward Bound and College Club and a volunteer firefighter during my senior year of high school. And I did a lot with them, especially with College Club and Upward Bound as a mentor, which they did a lot of mentoring, like a lot of mentor trainings while I was there. I worked with 7th through 10th graders to really help them through the college experience.
Time is up. I apologize for cutting both of you off. Moving on to the questioning period. Audience members, you may also ask questions to these senators. Do I have any questions? Senator Self.
So if you see a conflict occur that, say, is between senators or outside the senator group, how will you handle these conflicts if it does pertain to where you have to get involved now? And how will you dispute it? And how will you make sure it comes to a common ground instead of being one-sided? I yield.
So we'll go ahead and start with Senator Fees. The second question will start with Senator McKay.
Yeah, so I actually had an experience with this last semester in which I had two senators who were not necessarily feuding, but they definitely did have a disagreement. And I think the best thing you can do as a leader is to keep it civil. You know what I mean? Ensuring them and, ensuring that boundary between those two students, that you, outside of this, are still chill with each other. There's no external beef you're bringing into this, and just because you disagree here doesn't mean you have to disagree outside. Sometimes I try to bring in faculty and staff if it kind of devolves into pure insults, because at that point I think that's a student code conduct violation, and I think at that point a faculty or staff member should handle that. But keeping it civil is the best thing you can do as a leader, and ensuring everyone feels represented is the best thing you can do. I yield.
All right. And Senator McKay.
So I believe, during Upward Bound, you have a lot of disagreements. And I think what I would do is, keeping it civil and talking to them, one-on-one, having that conversation. But also, if I need to, bring higher authority or bring someone that knows more about the situation that can help. I yield.
All right. Do I have a second question? Wildcat Media.
If you could write a job description of the pro temp, what would it be?
Senator McKay.
So I think that is, helping the senators grow, working with them to help them succeed. If I need to, push them in a good way, like not overcomplicating things, keeping it civil, but pushing them to do the best that they can. I yield.
All right. And Senator Fees.
If you want the legislative definition, you're basically the Speaker of the House. Though you don't hold too much more weight, you're still guidance. I think morally speaking, you're kind of keeping tabs on your senators, ensuring that mentally, emotionally, and physically they are healthy human beings, and ensuring that their committees are doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. This year I'd like to implement, if I was elected, sort of like a Google form that asks my senators about how are they doing, how am I doing as a leader, what can I do better, what are you liking? So keeping tabs on your senator, keeping tabs on their committees, and helping them grow and being a good leader for them. I yield.
All right. Do we have a third question? Our audience member. Yeah, please.
How do the two of you plan on expanding the role of pro temp and also having that role expand your career as a senator as well?
As for expanding the role of pro temp, I kind of thought about this over the summer. I really think that the pro temp and the vice president and the executive board should take like an initiative. Like this year, my initiative would be taking our policies and procedures and making them accessible to people who are dyslexic or possibly have any learning accessibility needs. So making our financial policies, our constitution, and our policies and procedures readable to the regular student because they're not accessible as they stand. So I think that's one way we could expand it, is ensuring there's like one big project that you work on throughout the whole year. As for expanding, my own personal growth, I was elected. I didn't even know I was going to be elected. I was just there. This really helped me expand myself and my communication and my leadership skills. I kind of learned that leadership isn't about control. It's about working together as a team and making informed decisions via the people that are on your team. So you're just speaking for their decisions and giving them credit where credit is due. You know what I mean? That is the pro temp position. That's where I would like to take it. I yield.
Perfect. And Senator McKay.
So, talking more of as an audience member than I am a senator, I've heard that student government sucks. I hear that all the time. And, I want to work with the executive board, and I want to work with the senators, and I want to work with everyone here to make sure that student government, people don't know what's happening with student government. They don't know all the good that we can do, and I would like to take as an initiative to do better for the students. And for personal growth, I would like to, my communication skills, my public speaking skills, my leadership skills, my teamwork skills. There's so much that I think I could improve. I yield.
Awesome. So that was the 3 questions. Senator South. Do I have a second? Senator Fees. Is there any discussion on moving into exec session? Seeing none, we'll move on to voting. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent? Seeing none, this motion passes 7-0-0. I'm going to ask all audience members and our 2 electees to step out just briefly. All right, so we'll go ahead. So by written signed ballot, the votes were 3 and 2. Senator Fees, you have now been elected as the pro temp. Congratulations, Senator Fees. Also, thank you, Senator Merkay, for running. We always have these every year, so please don't be discouraged. And I'll also have Secretary Wadsworth just confirm the votes for me. The votes were 3 and 2. All right, and those have been confirmed by Secretary Wadsworth and myself. So we are moving on to swear-ins. If you're being sworn in, please come to the front. Yes, yeah. All right, please raise your hand. And repeat after me. I, and state your name. Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution. And carry out the duties of. State your name and position. To the best of my ability. And will represent the students of SUNY Poly. in a fair and unbiased manner. Congratulations. Please come up and sign in. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, okay, that's fine. Senator Self, do I have a second? Senator Deogenio, is there any opposition to adjourning at 1:29?
Senators, before you go, we're going to set the color grid.
Seeing none, we have adjourned at 1:30.